Welcome to Born on the Bayou Sports, a Houston sports show made for Houstonians by Houstonians. Join Tim Costello and Scott Barzilla every week as they break down the latest in Houston Astros, Rockets, and Texans news. Tim's a former minor league broadcaster, and Scott has written 2 books on the Baseball Hall of Fame. Yeah, if Javier could get it figured out, it would make things a lot easier because he was that guy everybody was counting on this year to be a Cy Young candidate, take that big step forward and help anchor this rotation with Fromber.
Since he's come to Houston, you can look at the development of guys like Carlos Correa defensively, Jeremy Pena defensively. I mean, you can Alex Bregman's, certainly I think a better than average third baseman.
And now you're putting teams in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. Now here comes Will Anderson. Pin back your ears, let's go. So if you're Bayou born and bred, or just like spending time in the H, sit down, relax, and stay Houston strong. Welcome back in, all my friends, to the show that had to take a break last week as Scott and I just had a lot going on, really me more than anything. But welcome back, Born on the Bayou Sports. Tim Costello, Scott Barzilla, coming to you on a wonderful Tuesday evening. Scott, how are you doing tonight?
We're doing great, and inquiring minds want to know, Tim. Was this the first Mother's Day for Scotty?
It was, yes. It was Scotty's first Mother's Day. It was a nice, calm day for us at the house.
So did you come through clutch?
I did. I did a nice Mother's Day brunch. Had my mom over, and then got my wife. We're all going to go see a Rough Riders game here in Frisco next Friday.
Yeah, so I did the Manny Petty gift certificate. One thing I'll say is that one of my wife's coworkers once got his wife a spatula for Mother's Day. And all I got to say is that better have been a pretty damn good spatula.
Yeah, I'm not pulling that one off. I wouldn't mind a spatula sometimes for Father's Day, though. I've gotten some nice grill spatulas that I do enjoy. But, at the end of the day, my wife really values the experience kind of gift, or being able to go do something fun together. And so for that reason, I did go with the Rough Riders game. It's Bowling for Soup Day on the day that we're going. I mistakenly thought that meant Bowling for Soup. When it said they were making an appearance, I thought it meant musically, but apparently it means they're just going to sit there and wave to everybody.
Well, I had to give a minor hat tip to my daughter's boyfriend, who endured both sets of grandparents at the same time for Mother's Day dinner. So, has a salute of the cap to him. That must have been pretty stressful for him, but he pulled it off nicely.
Typically, that first time can be a little tough, but after that, I think it gets a little bit easier.
It does. He's experienced 3 of the 4 before, but that was the first time all 4. So kudos to him. Good job.
Yeah, a little pressure. Make that good first impression. Once you're out there with a good first impression, it all gets a lot easier from that point going forward. But speaking of, good first impressions, Scott, there are a lot of future NBA hopefuls or NBA rookies that are out trying to make a good first impression right now at the NBA Scouting Combine. Rockets, as we found out last night, end up with the number 3 overall pick. How excited are you right now, Scott?
Well, I think it brings a lot of possibilities. I've taken a look at the draft prospects, and I'm kind of in terms of this particular draft, but and I'll put this back on you. I'll give you 3 options. You can stick and pick, whoever you think is the best guy out there. You can package that pick with, say, a Dylan Brooks and pick up like a better 3, or you can swing for the fences and package it with maybe like 2 or 3 players, maybe like a Jalen Green, and go after another superstar. Which road do you think you would be going down?
I'm always in favor of trying to acquire that superstar level talent, and I'd love to see the Rockets try and get somebody there. But it depends on who they can trade straight up Dylan Brooks and a 3 for, because at the end of the day, Dylan Brooks has a pretty big contract and he's got some time left on that deal. So I wonder who'd really be interested in taking that, and I'd want to know how do they fit with this team. Um, but I don't mind adding talent. I think this could be a poor draft to sit and pick best available. At the end of the day, this just isn't a draft with a crap ton of star level talent, franchise changing talent. And this team has kind of specific needs, right? Like if you can use this number 3 overall pick to go address those needs with an established NBA player, how do you not take that opportunity?
Yeah, that's true. The guy I've been hearing that has been linked to the Rockets, at least in the early going, is that combo guard out of Kentucky. Um, Average of 12 and a half points a game, about 5 assists. So, maybe a guy that could, play some point guard and play some 2 guard. The other guy out of Southern California, yeah, would you like some Bronny James? He's ranked as the 98th best draft prospect, but maybe you draft him at 3 overall and you get LeBron to come over, and who the heck knows?
Yeah, I don't mind maybe throwing a flyer as a second round pick on a guy like LeBron James to see if maybe LeBron does come with, right? Like it's not the worst plan in the world. I'm not taking him number 3 overall, right? Um, it's just not worth it, because also when LeBron comes to town, you kind of have to um, cede control of your franchise a bit to LeBron James, right? Like LeBron's going to be the one to make a lot of the free agent decisions, or the I don't know, the trade decisions. He's going to mortgage your future, and it's going to be LeBron's way. And I don't necessarily want that at this point in his career, right? Like 25, 26-year-old LeBron, like, okay, yeah, let's do it. But now I don't see that as the best option.
Yeah, heck, 35 or 36-year-old LeBron, I might be willing to do that, but not 40-year-old LeBron. I mean, he's kind of at the Jake Taylor portion of his career where he's like, I wish we would have had him 2 years ago. Well, we did. 4 years ago then. I say that in jest because I think Bronny averaged 6 points a game at USC. And what's so hard about these college guys is that it's hard. You don't see very many college players throwing down 20 points a game. And so it's very hard to sit there and project a guy out into being like an 18 to 20 point a game guy, which you're kind of hoping, when you're picking in the top 5 of the NBA draft, you're hoping you're getting a guy like that. And, with the exception of Jalen Green, the Rockets just haven't. I mean, Amen Thompson is not there yet, could be there. Jabari Smith is not there yet. Maybe he could get to that point, but he seems more like a very good role player at this point. And so it seems like, you've rolled your dice with these top 5 overall picks, and you may not have gotten a star out of any of them. In fact, your best player is a guy you got outside the top 10. So I don't know. I don't know what's there. I don't know if you go best player available. I don't know if you sit there and take another lottery ticket on a guy that might be good someday, or do you rather get a guy who is good now, but maybe doesn't have the highest ceiling in the world?
I tend to agree a bit with you, Scott. But again, like you said, not a great draft. A lot of factors to consider. A number of them being like the way these contracts are designed. Fred VanVleet is probably not guaranteed beyond this year, right? Realistically, he's not guaranteed a roster spot beyond this year. It's a team option for 2025-26 season. So at that point, if Amen Thompson is showing you what you need, do I need a backup point guard? There's so many things to look at, right? And I've talked about how much I love Jamal Shed. If I can get Jamal Shed in the second round, I take him all day, right? That's a guy who's a quintessential pro. He's a pro's pro. I truly believe it. But also, something's going to shake out this summer, right? Like Jimmy Butler's already pissed off at somebody. Pros get frustrated. Feuds happen. Guys move every summer. And at the end of the day, you now have a bullet to shoot, right? Like we were literally talking about, we wasted a lot of our ammo on Steven Adams, and he didn't even play. And he wasn't even a part of the season, and we traded what we thought could be some good pieces. Well, now he's going to be here. Now you've got a number 3 overall pick that, through this process, there's always a team who falls in love with someone, right? And there's some good European talent. Raphael Stone was in Europe earlier this week looking at some guys. So I don't know. If there's a chance to get a disgruntled guy who can come in, kind of like what the Texans did with Stephon Diggs, I like that idea the most, right? Like I don't necessarily want to trade probably 3 or 4 guys, right? Like I feel like Sengun's got to stay. I feel like unless I'm getting someone like Donovan Mitchell, I'm not trading Jalen Green. And I really don't want to trade Jabari Smith because I feel like he can kind of be that Chris Bosh guy who's just a good defender and a knockdown jump shooter and can rebound, right? Like he's not going to demand the ball. He's not going to demand plays run through him, but he can spot up. He can hit open jump shots. He can help space the floor. I don't want to lose a piece like that. So outside of those guys, I feel like I'm okay making moves. We saw what this team was without Tari Eason this year. So obviously I think maybe losing him would be a bad idea. But other than that, like if you could, let's say you could package, Jason Tate, Dylan Brooks in a 3 and go get, someone like Mikal Bridges, like, okay, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there because I think the problem you're reaching a numbers crunch right now because you're pretty much too deep at virtually every spot on the floor right now. And so you mentioned Deshaun Tate and Tari Eason really didn't play a whole lot last year because of injuries, who in the past have shown you at least that they're, can give you quality minutes. And so, I mean, you've got your backup center in Adams. You've got your backup 4 and probably Eason or Tate if you're going to go with a smaller lineup. I mean, you've got, those guys can both play the 3. You've got, the guy that we haven't even mentioned, who may have been the best rookie on the team last year outside of Thompson. So, I mean, you really got, you're looking at this roster. To me, I don't see a pure point guard outside of Van Vliet. I don't think Amen Thompson, we've talked about this before. I don't think Amen Thompson is that guy. And so if you think that kid from Kentucky can be that would be the direction I would go on draft day if I was forced to pick somebody. But this is the time when you start thinking, okay, can we package 2 or 3 guys for one guy? You mentioned Bridges. Butler is another possibility. I've heard Klay Thompson, although Klay Thompson is a little long in the tooth. There's going to be quite a bit of guys. I mean, you could even, thinking way outside the box, Damian Lillard might not be happy in Milwaukee. So I don't know where else, there's many different directions we can go. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell, rumors have been he's not happy in Cleveland. I don't know if that's a Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, I was going to say, who the fuck is happy in Cleveland, man?
Cleveland to me, it seems like that team should be should be a good team to be on, but, I don't know. So there's going to be about half a dozen
Joakim
guys.
Noah, Scott, do you think Cleveland's cool? Do you think Cleveland's nice? Do you take your family on vacation to Cleveland?
I have not yet. And we're not going to go there this summer either. So, maybe not. But, you've got about a half dozen guys out there who I think, you could conceivably, and you think about where Daryl Morey was. Daryl Morey was the king of collecting assets. And waiting for the right situation and converting those assets into something. And, I don't know whether he just lucked into it or what you might say. Rafael Stone has done that now that he's got the number 3 overall pick. Number 3 overall pick in this draft is not going to fetch you anything. But you attach it to a player or two, yeah, who knows?
Absolutely. And again, I maybe even like the idea of trying to get a late first round pick or early second round pick back, because I do think there's such a smorgasbord of talent, but not premier level talent, right? And again, I will continue to beat the drum for Jamal Shed. If you could get this guy late first round, early second round, this is a guy who can come in and seamlessly replace Fred VanVleet next year. He could sit, he could play 15 minutes a game as your backup point guard. He is a guy who has played his whole career with combo guards. He came up with a 3-guard lineup with Dijon Giroux and Marcus Sasser. He played 2 years ago next to Sasser, a ball-dominant guard. And then this year, he was the guy with the ball in his hands. He can do whatever you need him to do on offense. He's a clutch free throw shooter. He's a fantastic defender. I like the idea of kind of getting more assets. Trade back. Do what the Texans did. Look at maybe turning that number 3 overall pick into 2 first-round picks. And then you trade one of those picks and a player, and you keep the second one. I like keeping your options open here, Scott.
Yeah, the only thing I wish is if this had happened, like, say, 2 or 3 years ago, when you had, 3 or 4 really good draft prospects on top of the board. Even last year's draft, I think, had more on top of the draft available. That pick would be more appealing. My only fear is that, the rest of the league's going to look at that and just go, nah, I'm good. Especially when you're looking at, the type of talent that you could bring in. I mean, you can mention, does a team like Detroit? But then what do you get from Detroit? I mean, they've got a couple of good players, but, are they going to break up their core to give you something for just a top 3 overall pick?
I don't really know what their core is, though, right? Like, they've got Sasser. They've got who was our power forward 2 years ago for the Cougars?
Well, they had Cade Cunningham, obviously.
Cade Cunningham. I'm just trying to go off the Cougars on their roster that I'd be willing to bring back home and welcome them into Houston's warm embrace. Grimes is there as well. There's 3 Cougars on that team. So they're going to be competitive here in the next few years just based on what Coach Sampson has instilled in those guys. They're going to work hard. It's going to be a good team. They've got a lot of young talent. Cade Cunningham, as you said, I believe there's somebody else there as well. But no, they've got the power
There's
forward.
A big. They got a. Yeah, they got a big that's actually pretty good. Running the floor. I can't remember. We were talking about him on the radio today. I can't remember his name.
I think it's the guy with UH.
But
Jarris Walker. Jarris Walker is the one that they have.
Well, you're talking, and you're talking like a Sasser.
I'd kill to have Sasser on this team. That's what this team needs.
This team needs shooting. And that's, and I, they talked about this Kentucky kid the same way. Well, he shoots free throws well, so we think he will develop an outside shot. I'm sick and tired of getting guys that we think will develop an outside shot. I want a guy that actually has an outside shot. That's what I want.
No, I'm with you. And I watched Bronny shoot today. Bronny shot it well. That kid from Kentucky shot it well too. And again, these are wide open looks, right? They're not guarded. It's catch and shoot drills. It's standing still shooting drills. He's got a good looking stroke, man. But again, there are guys in the NBA who will be available who shoot at a 38 to 42% clip from 3 and have proven that they can do it at an NBA level. And that is what this team has been missing for, 25 fucking years. You have designed this team on penetration and dish, and you've never had a knockdown 3-point shooter. You've never fucking had it. Your best 3-point shooter was Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker from the corner. Like, come on. Like, Harden is a volume shooter. T-Mac is a volume shooter.
I think Eric Gordon's available.
Eric Gordon's not terrible, but like when that's your sniper, I want more. Like, I'm sorry, like I want Jude Law.
Yeah.
I want Jude Law as my sniper from behind, from enemy at the gates, right? Like, I don't want the Nazi who got shot in the face. I want the Russian who shot him.
Yeah, no kidding. Or JJ Redick, who might be the next Lakers coach back when he was in his prime.
I love JJ Redick so much. As a white kid who played basketball growing up, like, number one, how could you not like Duke? And then they had JJ Redick, they had Greg Paulus, they had Sheldon Williams was on that team too, man. That was a fun. And then the Paulus, the point guard from that team, went on to go play quarterback at Syracuse for 2 years after he finished up at Duke. Man, that was a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't much of a Duke fan, but I'm more of an underdog, root for the underdog kind of guy.
I didn't really understand that aspect growing up, right? Like, I didn't know Duke was like this powerhouse, right? Like, I just saw a bunch of white kids playing ball, right? I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
So, but let's talk a little bit about our Houston Astros, Scott. It's been a bit of a resurgence here in the last few days, right? The road trip started off quite sluggish in the first 2-3 games against New York. They get one win out of that series, then they take 2 of 3 from Seattle, and then come back home to Oakland against Oakland and take game 1. Bregman comes out, he's swinging the bat much better. Are you starting to feel like, okay, here we go? Because when you look at some of the periphery numbers, Hader's been much, much better in his last 6 or 7 outings. Abreu's been better. Presley's been the worst of the 3. It's just been maybe a couple guys who will not be in the starting pitching rotation come July, if people coming back off the IL go accordingly, have been a problem, right? Like, Hunter Brown is a problem at this point. Spencer Arringhetti, though he got a win last night, has not been very good up to this point. JP France had been awful. We've had some guys make starts that just aren't our normal starters. So let's take away those first inning issues possibly. And now some of those ninth inning issues look a little better. Are you starting to feel a little better?
I feel a little better. I think you look at the rotation. I think you've got JV. And I think at this point, you're not going to get Cy Young JV, maybe ever again. But you will get days like he had against Detroit where he was Cy Young JV on that day. And that's, and that's huge. Fromber is going to be Fromber, and I think he'll be Fromber from last year where he's up and down, but overall is a good pitcher. Ronel Blanco's been good until tonight, which and
he was good tonight. He just got fucked. He got fucked tonight.
Yeah, and the problem is that you had Javier in his last outing just absolutely get torched. I don't know what happened to get him to land him on the IR. I heard it was he slipped on his neck wrong. I don't know, but you got to have, if you're going to make any sort of run, you have to have 4 reliable starting pitchers. You give me a 5th starter who's sometimes good and sometimes not, I'll deal with that. But you got to give me 4 guys that I can count on 80-90% of the time that are going to go out there and give me a quality start. And I think you got 3 of those guys. It's just a question of whether Javier can be that 4th guy. He was, up until this, he went on IR, so maybe he can get back there. But I think offensively, we've got enough offense to score runs. I think you pointed out what's going on in the pen. Presley's pitching zeros. They're very, very, very shaky zeros.
They're Hector Neris-esque, right? Like, and they're as sketchy and as filled with base runners as Hector Neris once did, but somehow he's escaped the trouble.
But Abreu looks like the old Abreu, especially in the last several weeks. And, and Hader in his last 6 or 7 outings, as you pointed out, has looked like, fairly close to the old Hader. So Give me that reliable fourth starter. And let's go. One thing, just looking at the standings, we're 6.5 back. If this were a situation where we were 15-25 and you had a team that was running out like 28-13, I'd be like, okay, folks, let's, fold up the tent and, it's been a great year, head on home. But, the Rangers haven't looked good. They just got swept by the Rockies. Seattle's been up and down because they can't hit. Oakland's been a surprise, but, we know what Oakland is. We know what the Angels are. So you're right there. Even if you get back to 500 by the All-Star break, I don't think anybody's running away with this thing.
I tend to agree with you on that. And also, I feel like if anybody on this Oakland team is worth a damn, they're probably going to get moved, right? Like, this is an owner that this is their last year in this stadium. I don't think he's committed to winning at all. I would say most Oakland fans agree with me on that. And if there's a chance he can pick up a prospect or two before he moves the team away, this is a guy who has shown time and time again that he can and will make that move. So Oakland, I feel like if they even have a couple guys playing at a level that could get them into contention, they're going to get moved. And so that one doesn't worry me as much. Seattle, I feel like we've been waiting for Seattle to take that next step for 2 years. So that is a team, Scott. I think that worries me more than Texas. Texas spent a shit ton of money, and they had some guys who pitched above their pay grade. That happens sometimes, right? But like, they're going to come back to the norm, and guys like Dave Dunning are going to do what Dave Dunning has done his entire fucking career and be Dave Dunning, an average middle of the road pitcher. Well, now you're relying on that guy for big innings while you've got, I don't know, $300 million in payroll sitting on your IL as starting pitching goes, and you can't expect to compete that way. It worked. Every now and then guys get hot, but baseball is the purest law of averages, right? You will return to your means. And your means in this case are the Texas Rangers, are a team that can slug, but they definitely have had some injuries and they don't have the pitching to compete over 162 ball games at this point in time. So they're similar to the Astros, where they're hoping to tread water until they can get some of these guys back. So at that point, it's really going to be a true dogfight, Scott, of a Seattle Mariners team that, they're hoping to stay healthy with a lot of young talent that hopefully has matured into a team that can handle that level of a division race. A team like the Astros getting healthy, hoping that their savvy and their veteran presence can calm things down enough to make a run. And then a team like the Rangers, who are in a similar position, defending World Series champions, a lot of pride on the line, a lot of veteran talent in that locker room. Do they have what it takes to get healthy and make a run down the stretch?
Jonathan Gray just fell off his couch. But in all seriousness, there's not a whole lot there. I tell you what, if I were Nathan Eovaldi, secretly in my heart of hearts, I would be craving a deal to the Astros, because we absolutely own his ass. I mean, Jose Altuve has more home runs against Nathan Eovaldi than he does against any pitcher. And that's, the one thing that that gives me hope is coming into this Oakland series, we're 5-5 in the division against the two biggest rivals. And you could claim that one of those Mariners games is one of those bullpen games that we should have won, but, the bullpen blew. We have a winning record against the Rangers. So I'm not scared at all of this division. What scares me is just, how this team, up until this point, every time they seem to gain momentum, they seem to take a step back. And so that's what worries me more than anything anybody else in the AL West can do.
I tend to agree with you on that. And again, we've got some guys having career seasons too, right? This is some of the best baseball we've ever seen Jeremy Pena play. And for those reasons alone, I have to think that we're going to be at least in the thick of things down the stretch, right? We did what we did last year with Pena having a down year, with Martin Maldonado being garbage. Okay, well, now we got two catchers who can swing it. We did it last year with Abreu playing like garbage. Okay, Singleton's at least got a chance to run into a pitch and hit one out. That's at least an opportunity that could happen with Singleton that was not going to happen with Abreu. Jake Myers has been a playable major league outfielder at this point, right? Hitting 250, rangy on defense. Dubon is getting to do what we wanted Dubon to do, which was fill in around the whole diamond, play some center, play some left, play on the infield. We don't need him to be an everyday center fielder. We need him to play that Marwin role of give everybody a break. You get consistent at bats, but it's not going to be in the same spot every day. So if we can actually use this roster the way it was intended, I love our chances. The one thing I'd like to see more fire from Espada. There was a report that came out that a couple players weren't happy with his communication style. Obviously, winning cures stuff like that. But today, I think, was a great example where Renel Blanco gets tossed for the game for a foreign substance when he's really trying to get his point across that it's not a foreign substance. It's rosin and sweat. He's a heavy sweater. This is Houston. He rubbed the rosin. He literally handed his glove right over. There was no hesitation. There was no trying to hide anything. And Espada just seemed to kind of accept it. Where I was talking with Haley, Dusty Baker would have lost his shit. He would have gone ape shit crazy on that and would have been thrown out of the game as well. And I'd like that more from Joe. I think some of the players sometimes need to see my boy's got my back.
Well, Dusty was only tossed from one regular season game as an Astro.
I know, but he would have gone. He would have been more animated.
You would think, you'd hope, and that's, I don't know. I mean, was Espada the right guy? I mean, I think we both agreed Baker needed to move on. And I think, I'm happier that Baker's not here just because, some of the head scratching moves that he would make. And I like how Espada has moved some guys up and down the order. True story, and I didn't realize this. Did you know that in 2020, Jose Altuve went to Baker and told him, move me down the order? And Baker wasn't going to do it. Baker was going to keep him in like the 1, 2, or 3 hole. But he forced his hand and, moved me down to 7 or 8 hole. Everybody knows that was the lost year, from Jose Altuve. And we were wondering, before the last 2 games, which we'll get to, I'm sure, momentarily, at what point would Alex Bregman have needed to do that? Hey, lower me down the order. And you start to see him going 4 to 5 to 6 to 7. And it looks like Espada is more willing to move guys around based on how they're hitting and based on matchups rather than just simply, oh, here he is. He's this hitter, so we're going to pencil him in. I mean, we've seen Pena move up in the order. We've seen, so we've seen some movement out of him that I tend to like.
Decision-making wise, I've had no problems for the most part with Espada's decisions. I think he does a nice job in game. I think he does a nice job of putting lineups together, like you said. Who's hot, moving guys up and down. Dusty basically had the same lineup penciled in from day one. I do like that. I just sometimes think Joe's maybe a little quiet. We've talked about it before. This clubhouse has lost a lot of its vocal leaders, including Dusty. And so who's the fire, right? Who's going to bring that heat? Who's going to rile people up? It used to be Springer. After that, it was Correa. At times it's been Verlander. We know it's not Altuve. Bregman's not, Bregman's more of a swaggy guy. He's not a fire guy. So who is it, right? Jordan is kind of the cool, collected type. It just seems to me that this team needs someone to light a fire sometimes. We need a little Lou Brown to come in and get things going.
Well, yeah. Well, what I'm thinking is, I don't know if they have a limit as to how many coaches you can have on a coaching staff. But you ever remember the Larry Tate commercials? Larry Tate, office linebacker?
I don't know.
No. So basically somebody commits like a foul, an office foul, like maybe, microwaving fish or, doing something like that. Larry Tate would come in and tackle you. It was just this big linebacker dude. Have like a crash test dummy. Like, okay, Larry, you run out there and you start yelling at the umpire. You can get tossed. You don't have any kind of strategic, responsibility here whatsoever. So you go out there and you just yell and scream and, do all that. I don't know if you could have a guy like that, on your staff, but of course I'm kidding, but you need a balance on a staff. You need, if you have a manager that is more calm, cool, and collected, I don't want Joe Espada to be somebody he's not, but maybe have somebody as your bench coach who's maybe a little bit more fire in the pants. Maybe that's the direction that you go.
No, I tend to agree with you. There just needs to be somebody in there who's willing to, rattle the cages a little bit and either it's get tossed in this situation or, sit there and tell Laz Diaz he's a fucking dumbass. I don't know what it is, but let's keep this train running and rolling around the bend. I ain't seen the Texas schedule yet, but I don't know when. Actually, we do know when. It's coming out later this week.
I think that's tomorrow.
It is.
Yeah, it's coming out tomorrow, unfortunately.
So we've seen that the Texans will not have the opening game of the season. That's already been released, and it's going to be Ravens and Chiefs. But there's been some rumors, Scott, that the Houston Texans are going to be having a holiday battle against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. It's rumored either Christmas or Thanksgiving. I'm kind of excited. I've already laid some minimal groundwork with the wife about, hey, how cool would it be to spend Christmas Day watching the Texans, or hey, Thanksgiving Day. I've always wanted to do a Thanksgiving dinner tailgate. So I've already started laying some pretty heavy groundwork here, Scott.
Yeah, I saw Vegas. I think Bovada had the Texans at 9.5 wins, and they've also rated them as, based on last year's standings, obviously, as having the 4th hardest schedule in the NFL. So basically it's the AFC North and then the Texans in terms of strength of schedule, and anybody that, is an AFC North fan kind of knows why that is. So given those two facts, where are you standing now on your over under? Are you taking the over 9.5?
I think
are you going under that?
I think I take the over. When you got a quarterback like CJ Stroud, 9.5 feels low. I feel like this offense is going to be loaded with weapons. He's going to have a lot of choices. There's going to be a lot of games where he has a guy who is a mismatch. I don't think there's going to be everyone gets this many catches per game. I think you're going to see some games where it's Diggs, some games where it's Dell, some games where it's Collins. I think you can look at truly now what the 49ers do, where they have 3 different types of receivers who can do 3 different types of things. They have a good tight end. They've got a running back who can catch it, who can run it, who can even probably toss it a little bit, like McCaffrey does on some end arounds and throw type plays. So this team's going to put up points, right? Now let's look at the defense. This is going to be a defense that flies around. This is going to be a fast, physical defense, and I think this is going to be a team that really gets to the quarterback. And when you get to the quarterback like that, you're going to create turnovers. So when I look at this team, Scott, I see 11.5 would be the number that I come in at, somewhere between 11 and 12 wins.
I think I'm coming in at around 10 or 11 wins just because that schedule is going to be brutal. But then again, from year to year, you never know how good some of these teams are, but you're playing the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to be good. You're playing Baltimore again. Baltimore's going to be good. Dallas in the regular season is going to be good. So, those are going to be some tough wins. The thing that I want to guard against, and I'm going to lay this out here because we like to have this on record. Fans and we're fans. We get locked into what I lovingly call magical thinking. I don't know. You know what magical thinking is, Tim?
Probably where we think the rose-colored glasses, right? Where we think the best of everything's going to happen, and we kind of give ourselves a little bit more credit on paper than we're maybe due.
So I'll go with Todd Callis was the perfect example. He came to our Sabre meeting right after the 2017 season, and he was like, "And Marwin Gonzalez is going to be even better this year in 2018." And I think the whole room was like, not sure about that. And the reason I say this is that right now I'm looking at guys like Stephon Diggs and I'm thinking 100 catch receiver in this offense, sign me up. But, he didn't look so good down the stretch this last year. Tank Dell's coming off of, a broken leg. And they said that, the shot where he was shot was in the leg. So is he going to be able to recover and have the same speed and quickness that he had? Is Joe Mixon, after this many years in the league, still going to have that burst that he had, in his time in Cincinnati? And so you can look at, all the way up and down the line, you can kind of point to, here's some things where things could go sideways. Now, I looked at it optimistically and saying, like, this offensive line was decimated last year by injuries. Just a little bit of health. Juice Scruggs playing center all year instead of guard. Titus Howard playing tackle all year instead of guard. Having Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard both healthy at your bookends playing tackle. Having Kenyon Green maybe give you something at guard. So that's one area of optimism that I would have that, last year's team didn't have, is that this team was, holding it together with just, bubble gum and spit, on the offensive line, that maybe this year that's the one area where I think we'll probably see more improvement that people aren't talking about.
And not only just on the offensive line, Scott, the secondary was decimated at times with injuries as well. Guys that would not normally get playing time on an NFL field saw some playing time last year. And I think that the Texans have quite a bit of talent now as backups, as, nickel corners, as dime corners, who can come in and make some plays. So it's not going to be guys like Andre Carter Houston, on a crucial fourth down need to make a stop anymore, right? Now you're going to have somebody who can make a play in there. You're going to have somebody a little bit more confident. So I think the defense is like, I agree with everything you say on offense. I think there's definitely some opportunities for step backs for guys, but I just think that this offense is going to do such a good job of finding mismatches throughout the game and exploiting them. I don't think Stephon Diggs is I don't think he's a 100 catch receiver in this offense. I think he might have 80, 85, and he'll probably have 1,100, 1,200 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns. But I think you could put those numbers across the board for guys, and they're going to be a frustrating fantasy roster, because one week a guy's going to go for $180, and the next week we'll have 3 catches for 50 yards. Because I think the ball's just going to get spread around, and whoever's open is going to get it. And the way that this team is set up, there's going to be one guy every week who's just matches up in a way that's going to exploit some things.
All right, Tim. So I'm sure you heard, some of the banter going around that there might be a certain former Texan legend who kind of dangled that carrot out there that maybe if certain things happen that he'd be willing to come back. So, number one, how likely do you see that scenario? And number two, where do you think he fits in? Because you'd be surprised at my answer.
I think he fits in better than people think. But I think I would have him play defensive tackle. I think if he's willing to come to this team and bang and play defensive tackle, he's a fantastic fit. But I don't think that's realistically what he wants to do, right? Like, if he's coming out of retirement, I think he sees himself in a scenario where one of these guys we brought in has an injury, God forbid. Texans are clearly a team that can make a playoff run, and JJ suits up and fills in for X player that got hurt. I don't even want to say a name because I don't want to put it out there. But that's what JJ was talking about. I truly believe it's like a 1% chance that he really does come back. I think JJ's got football left in him. I think he's one of those guys that retired before the injuries hopefully took too much of a toll. And I'm okay with that. I don't think JJ owes us or anyone anything. But I do like the idea of, hey, somebody got hurt. We need a pass rusher. Give JJ Watt a call. At the end of the day, there are plenty of quarterbacks, right, who have technically not retired and said like, "Hey, I'm willing to come in if somebody gets hurt." So why, do we look at Matt Ryan like, "Hey, you're ridiculous," or do we look at Joe Flacco like he's ridiculous from coming off the couch to taking NFL snaps? And the answer is no. So it's not ridiculous to think JJ Watt could do the same thing. I think you and I both have learned at this point in his life or in our life of fans of JJ Watt, you can't really tell him you can't do this because he will say, "Fuck you, watch me."
Yeah, and I agree with you 1,000%. Defensive tackle would be the spot that I would put him at, just because you got Will Anderson, you've got Daniel Hunter, on each side there. Having three premier pass rushers on the field at the same time. And Denico Autry is no slouch. So you could have four guys on a passing down who all are capable of sacking a guy 10 or more times in a season. To me, I think probably the dream scenario for him would probably not even be an injury. It would be, Will Anderson, Daniel Hunter, you get after the quarterback for 3 quarters. You go out there and you bust your absolute tail. You get us a couple of sacks early. Okay, JJ Watt, you're fresh in the 4th quarter. Now you come in, let's go. That's probably what he's thinking, because he's thinking like, to me, his wet dream right now is I'm going to make a key sack in the 4th quarter that's either going to get us into the playoffs or is going to win us that divisional, round game that finally gets us into an AFC championship game. And that's going to be my legacy. That's probably his wet dream at this point. And, I think you could definitely see a scenario where that could happen.
If anyone deserves that opportunity, it is JJ, right? Like JJ pretty much hand delivered our first playoff win with that pick 6 that he had. That game changed from that point forward. Don't get me wrong. Arian Foster was fantastic. Andre Johnson was fantastic. TJ Yates had a great game as well. But that whole stadium erupted the moment that JJ Watt made that unbelievable play. So if anybody deserves to have like a sack or like a strip sack or something like that to define Texans history, I'd love for it to be JJ. But I truly think that the way that we see JJ is it's going to be somebody got hurt in the playoffs. Texans, slug one out in the divisional round, get to the AFC Championship game, down a man. JJ, we need you, bud. And he says, "I got you."
Yeah, that's probably spot on the money there. I think he would sign towards the end of the season, because I don't know if you can really add a guy in the playoffs. I don't know what the roster rules are around that. So you'd probably add him late in the year and just let him ramp up. I don't know. I'm not going to tell JJ Watt he can't do something, but I don't know if he could come in off the street in that week and be dominant. I could see him coming in like, say, December, and by January being up and ready to go.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. Like if you're looking at a team and defensive tackle is legitimately a problem during the year, right? If you're getting gassed on the run and you come to him in November and say, "Hey, I want to sign you last week of the season to make a run of the playoffs, and I want you to play defensive tackle on 1st and 2nd down. What are your thoughts?" I think that might be a scenario where you could maybe entice him. But again, defensive tackle, you're banging, right? Like you want him to play that Vince Wilfork kind of position, right? And stuff the run, account for 2 guys, let your other players make plays because 2 linemen have to account for JJ Watt. Well, that shit's exhausting, right? And I just don't know if that's what he wants to do at this point in his life.
Well, yeah, the question is, are you ring chasing or are you stat chasing? If you're ring chasing, that's the role that, and really the good thing about D'Amico's defense is not run the same way as Romeo Crennel's defense. They don't have a guy. They don't have a Jabba the Hutt, nose tackle kind of guy I mean, their defensive tackles have been quicker and have been, Sheldon Rankins, making more plays last year, than your typical defensive tackle would. So, I could see him being appetized by that, saying that, number one, I'm ring chasing, but number two, maybe, just maybe I can, make a play here and there where in some defenses, your defensive tackles are just swallowing up blockers.
I don't think it's as much stat chasing for him as much as just health, right? Like if he literally said when he retired that he had a moment where like he almost died on the field and he was worried about his health with his baby. Do you want to bang your head inside like that, right? I wasn't thinking as much as JJ trying to get stats as much as preserving his body in a way, although he's found a way to get hurt playing numerous positions.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. Did we want to do our new segment now?
Remind me again, Scott, which one we're talking about here?
The lollygagger of the week, or the lollygagger of the 2 weeks in our case.
I think you renamed that.
He is somewhere in Florida. I'm not even sure what he's doing, so he's not eligible anymore. I'm going to go with Alex Bregman for the overall performance so far in the season. Yes, he's had 2 home runs and a double last night. Yes, he's got a homer and a double tonight. So let's, looking for great things for the future. And if we want to tip our cap to him for his performance over the last 2 days, but over the course of the full season, he's been the guy that sticks out. If I have to pick a second guy, unfortunately, just lately, I haven't seen a whole lot from Yainer Diaz lately. I mean, he got off to a nice start, but he hasn't been taking nearly as many walks as he was in the first couple of weeks, and has been on a power outage for the last, I would say month. But, that's the great thing about, where this team is at, is that offensively, nobody has been absolutely god awful once you shipped Jose Abreu out of town.
Yeah, it's been better, right, since Abreu left. And I almost felt bad giving him that horse's ass or lollygagger of the week when you read the article that came out the next day after he had been sent down to the rookie facility to continue to work on things. But I think Bregman was certainly in line for that award up until the last 3 days, maybe. But now I kind of feel bad giving him that award when he's been the opposite of a horse's ass here in the last couple of days. So I do think Yainer's a good pick. He's kind of got a little bit of a Scotty Scheffler thing going on right now. It's fucking Presley. You know what? Nope. Ryan Presley. I'm going to move you into the horse's ass award as you blew this save in the 8th inning. Ryan Presley, Scott. Ryan Presley is my horse's ass.
Yeah. Okay. I will endorse that pick after seeing that. Yeah. I think, the bullpen has been disappointing overall. I think if you look at this team, obviously, offensively, they're not scoring runs like they should be scoring runs. They are a top 8 team in team OPS, and they're middle of the pack in runs scored. So, there's definitely a clutch thing, but it's hard for me to get mad at a middle of the pack offense when you have a pitching staff that's running 28th or 29th in runs allowed. I mean, that's just brutal. Yeah, you can't ignore that. And obviously the biggest culprit is, those 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guys that just up until about 2 weeks ago, all 3 of them were pitching badly. And now Presley is the only one that's still pitching badly, it looks like.
All righty. Let's take a brief moment here to tip a cap. Before we get into our next segment, Scott, I'm going to tip my cap this week to Kyle Tucker. This man has been on a tear. He might as well write "Pay Me, Rick" on his cleats right now. The way that he is swinging the baseball bat leads the league in OPS at 994 coming into this game. He has just been absolutely fantastic. If we don't lock Kyle Tucker up long term, it's going to be a huge mistake.
So is it a pay me Jim, pay me Jeff, pay me Reggie, pay me Dana? You know, who do you put on the shoes there? I think that he's been a great pick. He's been he was the offense for most of that Yankee series that, we lost 2 of 3. I am going to go with Space City Sports. Tim knows this very, very well. Number one, play-by-play is, I think, the hardest thing that any sportscaster can do. I think, I think color commentating certainly has its challenges, but I think it's a lot easier to be a good color commentator than it is to be a good play-by-play announcer. And something that they did last night, they let Julia Morales run play-by-play because Oakland's TV is run by has a woman, and so it was the first time in history that you had 2 women doing play-by-play in the same game. Listening to the game, obviously there were some moments where it's like Todd Callis would have been smoother, and that's to be expected. So Todd Callis is a seasoned veteran. That's her, first moment to do that. And the thing is that, the tough thing for someone like her is that you might tell her, hey, if you want to be a play-by-play announcer, you need to go down to the minors. How does she tell her family, I'm getting this nice 6-figure salary as the sideline reporter, but I'm going to go down and I'm going to make about 30 or 40 grand calling some A-ball games. What do y'all think? Y'all on board? I think the family would be like, no, not really. But so what the team did is the team said, we're going to do you a solid and we're going to give you some practical in-game experience. Because if you look at, where we talked about, where guys have come from, Robert Ford was Kansas City's 10th inning guy. We know Todd Callis, I think, was on Tampa Bay Rays 10th inning guy. That's how they got their opportunity. And so what this allows Julia Morales to do is it allows her to get some tape out there to sit there and say, see, look, I can do this. And based on last night, I think she absolutely can do this. She's, nobody's going to be giving her a Robert Frick Award for the Hall of Fame quite yet. But I think she's somebody that if you gave her routine opportunities could eventually get very good. I mean, I don't know if you remember how rough Steve Sparks was in his first years as a radio color guy. And when they switch over to the middle innings, he kind of had that Monty from Major League. I don't know if you remember from Major League 2, or the guy hits that line drive and just fly ball, caught. But, Steve Sparks has gotten better. So give Julia Morales some opportunities, let her get better. And I tip of the cap to Space City Sports for making that happen.
Couple things, Scott. First of all, there's no way in hell she's getting $40,000 to call games in A-ball. Probably closer to $25,000 if she's a full-time employee. Otherwise, $1,000 a month for her in-season services. Second of all, she did a fantastic job for what the assignment was. This is someone who's never done play-by-play. And I don't think she necessarily has the desire to be a play-by-play announcer. I think she is fantastic at what she does. And I think an opportunity came up that she was wanting to take advantage of and try something different. And I think she did great. It's driving that ship isn't easy. There's a lot of downtime in baseball. And you also have to know how to use the 2 other people at your services. You've got a color guy and you've got a sideline reporter. How do you bring them into the conversation? How do you work that conversation, all while never missing a pitch or never missing any action? It's a little bit easier when you got the TV because you can let the video or the feed speak for itself. But yeah, she did a great job. You could tell, a little green around the ears, but she had a fun She had a fun home run call on Bregman's homer. And, I tip my cap, like you said, to Space City Sports for recognizing that they could do this and make it something cool and make some history. And I tip my cap as someone, with two daughters who loves baseball. I'd love for my daughters to say, want to follow my path and try and call baseball games, or not even baseball, football, basketball, golf, whatever it is, right? Dottie Pepper is one of the best broadcasters in the game for golf, and she is a female. So good job by the Astros. Good job by Space City Sports to make history and give that opportunity to Julia.
All right, Tim. So is it that time of the week?
It is. What do you have?
All right, so I'm going to have to set up this as Tim references in the beginning of every podcast. I am the author of, he mentions 2 books. I'm actually the author of 5 books, 4 of which are on baseball. And would you like to guess how much money I've made off of those 5 books, Tim?
I'm actually going to guess you've lost money, Scott.
I'm about $1,000 in the whole grand total. And so 2 of them were by a more or less traditional publisher. The first 2, the traditional publisher, they said, you have to go out and buy 2 dozen pitchers from the Hall of Fame. Those were about $30 a pop. So you can do the math on that. I never made that money back in sales. The next 2 are what we call the vanity publishers. And I'm going to get into them here in a minute. And then the last one I published on my own through Amazon. And after having done that, I will never, ever look back ever again. I made money off of it because I spent hardly anything. So I couldn't help but make money. So you would not believe, I would probably average, I would say, a dozen calls and emails a week from vanity publishers. Many of them the same people calling me over and over again. And somehow none of the operators seem to be from the United States, even though they're in the United States, so they say. And all of them are like, we would like to help you in publishing and promoting your novel. That's terrific, except none of them are novels. So obviously you don't know anything about my work. And then when I actually talk to some of them, it's like you can almost, you can't see them on the other end of the phone, but you can kind of see that glazed look, probably come over their eyes when you tell them, this is a book of baseball stats. It's a niche audience. I knew it was a niche audience when I got into this. I knew I wasn't going to make a ton of money. My hope, if I, the best I was hoped for is to be somebody like Jay Jaffe, who his formula for Jaws is now used by Baseball Reference. In fact, I even pitched that to them, earlier today when I found out that win shares are no longer available from Bill James Online. I was like, hey, you could you could have win shares, and hey, you can take my formula and you can just use it, for, I'm sure, a slight fee. But that would be something we would negotiate. But the fact that these people, keep calling, and it is what they want to do is they call them vanity publishers, because what they want you to do is they want you to sit there and say, oh yeah, I want to be a published author. So they get you to pay about $1,000, $2,000. They walk you through the process, and the work that comes out is okay, but I'm a pretty damn good writer. I'm not the best writer in the world, but I'm pretty damn good. So, like, one of the things is they wanted me to pay a penny for every word for somebody to edit it. Bull fucking shit. I am not paying for 100,000 word book. I'm not going to pay $1,000 for somebody to edit my work. Nice try. So Vanity publishers, just stop calling.
We get something similar on the podcast as well. At one point, we looked at switching over to somebody, and they didn't have the capabilities to run our podcast. That same person emails me at least 2 to 3 times a month asking me to take a meeting to see if our podcast would be a good fit for their network. I'm just like, dude, we took this meeting twice now. The second time I thought you had a solution. You still didn't have a solution, but you keep sending me the initial cold call email. Take me off your fucking list. But I totally hear you, Scott. That's absolutely annoying when that happens, and certainly would make someone a fantastic scumbag of the week. Well, Scott, it's been a pretty good couple weeks. It's kind of tough to pick a scumbag, so I'm going to take one that I guess is bothering me a little bit personally. Normally, I kind of take a stand on this segment, but I'm a member at Oak Hollow Golf Course up here in the DFW Metroplex. It's out in McKinney. Pretty run-of-the-mill public course. I pay a reasonable amount for my membership. $220 something a month for all you can play. I have a job. I can play Saturdays. I can play Sundays. Maybe a week night, 9 holes once a month, things on that nature. But I'm pretty limited. This golf course does not have a true men's association. It is not something you can pay dues to the course to be a part of. There is a club that calls themselves the Men's Golf Association, and these fuckwads get 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Saturday and every Sunday. The same clown who puts on the fake MGA also takes all the tee times on Tuesday evening to run a $35 scramble, which would mean, yes, even though I'm a member, they want me to pay $35 to come play in their scramble on top of my membership. Now this guy took a Sunday this week, all the tee times till 3 o'clock so he could run a scramble. Then June 2nd and June 3rd, course is completely closed to the outside so he can run, what is it? A 2-man scramble. I want to know who the fuck this guy is. I want to know whose wife he has pictures of, that he gets all the fucking tee times. And I want to know why my golf course doesn't even offer a pro shop credit, a free fucking hot dog, something for the fact that you've taken multiple Saturdays and Sundays away from me, a dues paying member. And when you ask about it, they say, well, there's plenty of other days you can play. And I can't because I have a fucking job, Steven. I have a job. I can't come play on Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning because I got to fucking work. I can play on Saturdays sometimes, and I can play on Sundays. And when you take those away, you've taken money out of my pocket because I'm prepaying for my golf. I don't want to go play somewhere else because I've already paid to play at that course. So, Oak Hollow, you got to do better, man. You've got to do better with this fake men's bullshit. We've also talked about coming up with our own league. My friends and I, so that way we can be permanently put on the tee sheet, since then, you can't mess with the league. We're going to be the Greg Abbott Trans Gay Alliance Golf League.
That sounds like a winner, Tim. I was a member of the MGA back when Clear Lake was still a course, and it was just such a distasteful experience because back then I was carrying a 12, so I was a pretty good golfer, and I'd go out there, and I remember this one time it was Dad and I are going out there, and this guy I have no idea who this guy is, and he's playing with us, and he just walks up and he just goes, "How much we playing for?" And I'm like, "What the fuck, dude? I don't even know your name. What am I going to, what the hell?" So, but I remember one time playing at the TPC, which is where they play the Insperity event now on the senior tour. Carrying my 12, Tim, playing from the tips at the TPC, I shot a 100 and came in third in my flight. That shows you how hard the TPC was, playing from the tips back in those days. But yeah, and some of these guys, and that's where you get your worst sandbaggers, because you have to carry a handicap. And so you get these guys that will sit there and they'll be playing 7 or 8 over through 15 holes, and then all of a sudden take 3 triples and you're just like, fuck you guys. Fuck you and get, just get fucked, right? And when you go over there, continue getting fucked and just keep going, keep getting, and keep getting fucked.
I'm with you, man. One of my least favorite people is how much we playing for guy. Because I've experienced that guy before. I had seen somebody out there practicing. Like, I knew he was okay, but rusty. He gets paired with us. Me and my buddy Roger, we're just like, Roger's a 18 to 20 handicap. He likes to have a good time. The guy brings musical. He brings a slide whistle out on the golf course. So if you hit a bad shot, he'll hit you with the slide whistle. Like, the guy's there to have a good time. He literally walks right up to us. He goes, "What are we playing for today?" I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, what are we playing for?" I was like, "I'll play you $1 a hole." 18 holes later, I had $18 in my pocket, and this guy had a sour fucking puss on his face. So it was an interesting experience, and I just hate that. Like, I don't want to play golf for money. I'm not on the PGA Tour. I'm not trying to turn professional. I'm here to have my 3.5 hours of solace a week and, just mentally refresh every week and not have to worry about anything but playing golf. So I'm not there to play for money. I very rarely do play for money. I honestly play worse most times when I play for money. So those guys do drive me crazy, Scott. I'm with you.
I do too. All right, I'm going to endorse your scumbag though, because I mean that has to be just absolutely aggravating when there's only a certain amount of time you can get out there, and to sit there and take all the times. I'm guessing the course is getting some kind of a kickback or something, from the entry fee. I don't know. That has to be the reason, because I mean there's no other explanation for it.
Yeah, I understand that I'm not a member at a country club, right? Like, I understand that this is a public course, but you know what? Like, I've been a member for 3 years now. I've had the same 7:50 tee time every Sunday morning for like 2 years now. Like, at some point, maybe number one, learn my name. Like, I'm there you still have to ask me what my name is when you check me in every single week. And number two, just like help a brother out. Like, be like, hey, you can't book a tournament at this time because we have a group that plays every single Sunday and they are here religiously. They even brought a cart heater and a cart cover so they can play when it's cold outside. So you can't have this time. You can have it a little bit later, right? Like, I don't know. Just having worked in country clubs and having worked as a membership director where my whole goal was to take care of the membership, it's kind of frustrating when they flip the bird to the members quite often.
All right, Tim. So it looks like our Astros are taking it down to the wire again. Maybe they can pull one out here in the bottom of the ninth.
We'll see. We'll see what they have for us, but I think that's going to be all we have here on this episode of Board on the Bayou Sports. We appreciate everybody who joined us. Be sure to like the Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube page. If you haven't checked out Scott's Substack, please head over there. Thoughts from a Native Texan is Scott's Substack. I'm sure he'd love to pick up some new readers. He's also writing for Battle Red blog, and I think he's going to be making some waves in the crawfish boxes here soon as well. So Scott is making some moves. Be sure to follow him and see what he's doing to cover these local Houston teams.
All right, Tim. So more Astros victories in the future, and hopefully we can do this again next week.
That sounds like a plan, Scott. We will see everybody again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Y'all have a good one.